Please.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Before we introduce our keynote speaker, I just want to recognize one soldier who's here tonight. It's not very often that you get to talk to somebody who deployed in 3 wars. Captain Ray Griffin is here, United States Army, deployed in World War II, twice to Korea and once to Vietnam. Sir, would you stand? It is my privilege to introduce Larry Bayette. And I felt it was just appropriate for a Marine to introduce a Marine. So Larry Bayette, my very good friend and former Commandant of the state of Arkansas, the Marine Corps League, Russellville Police Department. I'm going to brag on a bunch of other stuff because he's going to brag on what he introduces him. Larry, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate our partnership.
Mr. Williams, I can't tell you again how honored I am to be able to do this. It's my distinct honor to thank all of the Gold Star families, first of all. I could never show my appreciation to your losses, never tell you how much each one of your friendship and your camaraderie has meant to me under those circumstances. And again, my duty comes to introduce Mr. Williams. Hershel Woodrow Williams is from West Virginia, and he's a retired United States Marine. He's the last surviving Marine recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor from World War II. During the Battle of Iwo Jima, Corporal Williams distinguished himself with actions above and beyond the call of duty, for which he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. These actions occurred on the same day as the well-known raising of the flag on the island's Mount Suribachi. Although Corporal Williams was not able to witness that event, he fought through the remainder of the 5-week-long battle and was wounded on March 6th, for which he was also awarded the Purple Heart. In September of 1945, he returned to the United States, where he was presented the Congressional Medal of Honor by then President Harry S. Truman on October 5th, 1945, at the White House. After his later retirement from the Marines, he served as a chaplain for the Congressional Medal of Honor Society for 35 years. During this time, Woody was the one who recognized that Gold Star families had not received the support and recognition they deserved for the sacrifice of their loved ones and the service of our country. It was his brainstorm to design and build these monuments across the country to let everyone know about their sacrifice. I can't do it justice, so with no further ado, I would invite Woody to step up here and tell your story, sir.
Thank you, Sir Commandant. Thank you very much. Thank you. To all of those who never got to come home, let's dedicate that applause to them. I want to present Jim Bob with a challenge coin. There's not very many individuals who will take on a task like this, get this thing organized and get this many people to miss sleep and come to a function like this. So, Jim Bob, it is my pleasure to present you a challenge coin of our foundation, and thank you for all that you have done to make this possible.
It's an honor, sir. Thank you very much.
That was a good meal. You agree? Yes. Everybody's full? Sleepy? Well, I'm gonna wake you up. Harry Truman presented 13 Medals of Honor on the same day. The Medals of Honor had already been approved by the War Department v. Congress, and that's why it's called Congressional Medal of Honor, because at that time, it had to go through the Congress. And Congress had to approve it before it ended up on the president's desk. I was told after I received the Medal of Honor that my recommendation, or the recommendation by my commanding officer, Captain Donald Beck from Tennessee, when that recommendation reached the Congress, one of the congressional people said, before we approve this, we must have one more piece of evidence. And they sent a memorandum back through the channels of the War Department, back through to Nimitz office in the Pacific, to say to them, we need one more piece of evidence. Before they could act upon that, either somebody changed his or her mind. I guess it had to be a his at that time because we didn't have any women in Congress back then. Somebody either changed his mind or he changed it himself, one or the other. But he sent a second memorandum down through the War Department to Nimitz office and said, disregard my previous request. It was approved and then went on to the president for him to sign. But had they stuck to that gun, it's very possible I would not have received the Medal of Honor. They have changed that procedure today to where now it does not have to go through the Congress. It goes directly from the Defense Department, once they approve it, to the president. As far as I know, and I can't find any history that says that the president has ever turned one down once it was approved through the channels. Over the history of our country, there have been 3,506 to this point. On the 26th, the president will award another one. It will be a posthumous award because the individual sacrificed his life performing the duty that earned him the Medal of Honor. Out of something like, history says, 42 millions of people who have served in our armed forces from the time we became a nation, only that number have ever been approved. 57% of those were awarded to those who sacrificed their life, earning the medal. On Iwo Jima, there were 27 Medals of Honor earned and awarded. 13 of us, by the grace of God, got home. All of them are now gone, except me. I'm the last of the 13. I wear this medal not because of what I did. I was only doing my job that the Marine Corps had trained me to do. Without that training and the dedication of those who trained me, I would have not have been able to perform the duty that eventually earned me the Medal of Honor. So when I wear this Medal of Honor, I do not wear it for what I did. I wear it in honor of those Marines who never got to come home. Day of history, February the 23rd, 1945, the day the greatest flag that's ever been on this earth was raised on Mount Suribachi. Two of those Marines that day sacrificed their lives protecting mine. So I keep it shined for them, for those two Marines who made it possible for me to be able to wear this medal around my neck. I didn't know who they were, although I had selected them to assist me. They were not in my squad, they were not in my platoon, so I didn't know them. But that didn't make any difference to them. The fact that we didn't know each other. We were Marines, and we take care of our own. But they sacrificed their lives that day, and it wasn't until October last year, because of computers and networks and the searching of records that we can do today that we could have never done two individuals on that particular day in that particular zone sacrificed their lives. So by deduction, we have said those are the two Marines who sacrificed their lives that day. Every person who receives the Medal of Honor, I don't care who they are, their life changes the very minute that medal is placed around their neck. They take on a completely different life than they had ever anticipated. I am here not, and would not have been here had that never happened to me. This is really what eventually got me here, because I wouldn't be in the program that we're doing without it. When I was 18 years old, I had enlisted in the Marine Corps. I tried to get in when I was 17, and my father was already deceased. My mother said no. And when Mom said no, that was it. You didn't say, Mom, you don't mean that. You better not say that. She wouldn't sign my paper at 17, so I had to wait until I became a man. I went to bed on October the 1st. I got up on October the 2nd. And now I went from a boy to a man. Because now I'm 18 years old. I can do my own. So I went and enlisted, or attempted to enlist. I filled out my paper, one sheet, mainly to tell who my next of kin was and who to notify in case I didn't get home, and who to pay the $10,000 life insurance just in case. And I tried to hand it to the Marine recruiter. He looked at me instead of my paper and said, I cannot take you. And I said, why? He said, you are too short. They had a height requirement at that time that they had had for years. You had to be 5'8" or better, or you couldn't get in the Marine Corps. We had a lot of Italian individuals in our community at Fairmont, West Virginia, because we had a lot of coal mines. They came there to work in the coal mines. 6'6" guys working in a coal mine is not a good deal, but he goes around bumping his head all the time. But a 5'5" or a 5'4" guy, or even to a 5'6", he can walk upright in a coal mine. So we had a lot of Italians. When I was filling out my paper of enlistment, it had a question on there. Just a block with a heading said religion. I didn't have any. I'd never been to church in my life. We didn't even have a church in the community. Couldn't go if we wanted to. I didn't know what to put in there, because I didn't know we had Episcopalians and Catholipians and, all those things. So I didn't know what to put in there. I'm going to wait till I get to him and say, what do I put in here? But I'm standing by a little 5'5" Italian boy. And he's got his paper ready to give to the recruiter, and he's next up. I wondered what he has in his block. So I peeked. I leaned over to see what he had. And in there he had the letter C. Ah, that's what goes in there. So I put a letter C in mine. I became a Catholic right then. I didn't know it, but that's what I was. It had a C on there, and had I not made it, I'd had last rites whether I won or not. Iwo Jima was not a great deal different than any other island that the Marines took in the Pacific. Most of us, when we were briefed, couldn't figure out why so many Marines would be needed to take a little island that was only 2.5 miles wide, 2.5 miles wide and 5 miles long. Because we had just taken Guam the year before, and it was 19 miles from one coastline to the other. And we couldn't figure out why so many Marines would be needed. But we had no intelligence on Iwo Jima. We couldn't get anybody ashore to find out who was there or how many were there. So we had none of that knowledge. Somebody must have been aware of the fact that it was going to take more Marines than we had used either place on any other island, because now 3 Marine divisions of 20,000 each are scheduled to be at Iwo Jima. My division was a reserve division. We were told on the way there aboard ship that we probably would never even get off ship because they probably would not need us. We were just back up in case. The other 2 divisions, the 4th and 5th Marine divisions, had 20,000 each, and they all hit the beach at the same time, one day. And that's where they got pinned down. The general in charge of Iwo Jima reversed the total defense that the other generals on other islands had been doing. On all of the other islands until Iwo Jima, they set up their defense to keep you from being able to get on the island. If they could get you in the water and you can't get ashore, there's no way you can take me. And that was the defense of every island until Iwo. Kiribashi said, no, let them come. Let's get them aboard the island. The boats are gone. They can't go anywhere. And that's why the casualties were so extremely high on Iwo Jima. Had them pinned to the beach and they couldn't get out. They couldn't advance. He had set up, according to history, and I can only repeat that, he had set up different sized pillboxes, and you guys call them bunkers today, but they were pillboxes to us. 800. One man, sometimes there were 2, sometimes there were more, sometimes there were larger pillboxes that would contain a great number of individuals within that pillbox. He had brought in metal from Japan and reinforced them with steel, and a piece of artillery or a bazooka had no effect on it whatsoever. You could drop a bomb on the top of it, but it didn't do any good. If you got an explosion inside, it would blow the thing out, but it wouldn't blow it in. That's why we lost so many people. Prior to going into the Marine Corps, I'd enlisted. I'm ready to go. I want to go. But we had a waiting list. There were so many people going in, and with only 2 Marine bases in the country, San Diego and PI, Parris Island, they just didn't have enough drill instructors to handle them. They didn't have enough housing to handle them. So they began establishing trains loaded with future Marines, starting down in the south and going all the way to California. San Diego was not getting the number that Parris Island was because East Coast was more heavily populated than the West Coast in those days. They picked us up, 6 of us in West Virginia, and we ended up in boot camp in San Diego, California. Normally, we would have gone to Parris Island. Prior to my entering, waiting for my day of reporting, I took a job driving taxi cab. I was driving from 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning. At that time, the only way families were notified when a loved one was lost was by telegram. The War Department would release a message to a Western Union office in the community or near community, wherever that individual happened to reside. And it would come into the Western Union office, they would put it on a piece of telegram paper, put it in an envelope that the War Department had furnished every Western Union office with, that had the War Department return address, as if it was coming from them. When they got it ready, they would call a cab company to be delivered to the family. I got some of those. I delivered some of those. They knew even before they opened the telegram. Because of its color, they already knew that the news in that telegram was bad. That left a rather lasting impression upon me. I went to school with a boy by the name of Leonard Brown. Leonard lived about a quarter of a mile past me. It was a little over a mile from our house to the school. We walked back and forth every day. no such thing as school as snow days. There made a difference whether it snowed or not as you went to school. Leonard and I would walk back and forth because he had to go by my house to go to school. I wanted Leonard to go with me to the Marine Corps. No, he wanted to be in the Army Air Corps. So he went his way, I went mine. Our paths never crossed again. Leonard became a nose gunner on a B-24, one of the most exposed positions on an airplane, and it got hit. Leonard was severely wounded, died 4 days later. I didn't know any of that because I'm in the Pacific and nobody is writing letters back and forth because every letter we wrote had to be censored by somebody, had to read it to make sure we weren't giving any secrets away. The letters coming into us were not censored. They were coming from mom and dad and girlfriends, wives, mothers. So I never knew that Leonard had sacrificed his life until I got home. When I got home, I went to visit Mr. and Mrs. Brown because Mr. Brown was like a surrogate father to me since mine had died years before. Hanging in their window at the Brown home were 2 of these flags until Leonard lost his life. Then the blue flag was replaced by this one. The Gold Star flag started in World War I. Mothers in California first put up a blue flag to show that they had somebody serving in the war. If that person sacrificed their life, then they would put a gold star over the blue to indicate that he had been lost. My mother had 3 of those blue stars hanging in her window. Fortunately, we all got back home. Gold Star mothers the name was reasonably well known for a great number of years. And for about 15 years, I attempted to get a monument in the District of Columbia. They tell me there's about 1,100 monuments and memorials in Washington, but there's not a one, not yet today, that pays tribute to families like these families, like these families. There's nothing there to pay honor and tribute to those who gave more than any of us. So for about 15 years, I worked trying to get a Gold Star Mother's Memorial in the District of Columbia. If I found a guy with a lot of money, I'd hit him up. I just never found the right guy. I thought I did when I was in New York one time and at the New York Stock Exchange, and Richard Smith was there. Richard Smith was a Vietnam veteran who started FedEx. I thought he was going to do it. But whatever happened, I don't know. It didn't work. But on our Capitol grounds in West Virginia, we have a Veterans Memorial. During the Vietnam War, the legislature decided they were going to erect a Veterans Memorial. And when they passed the legislation, it indicated that the name of every West Virginian who died at the hands of an enemy would be on that memorial. It did not take into consideration those that lost their life some other way. We finally got that corrected. Now that does, but at that time it didn't. There's 11,424 names on that memorial. And I was on a speaking trip to Parkersburg, West Virginia. I was speaking to a senior citizens group. They had signed me the topic that I talk about America. What responsibilities do we have as an individual, as a resident or a citizen of this state or this country? Things like voting. There's all kinds, but we all have a responsibility because others made it possible for us to even be here, as we are. As I'm speaking, I look back over the group, as I do here, and I see some gray hair. There are mothers in this group. I thought we would have a number because a National Guard group had been activated and got caught in the Philippines, and most of the outfit was wiped out. So I asked the question if we had any Gold Star mothers here. A number of them raised their hand. We paid proper tribute to them, thanking for their sacrifice, acknowledging the fact that they had given one of their own. After my speech, they all left the hall, except one man. One man sitting just a few feet from me, had his head down. I didn't know why he stayed. So I said to him, "Sir, is there something I can do, some way I can help you?" And I got no response. I'm turned around to the table behind me and I'm putting my stuff together to leave, and I hear him walking toward me. And I turned around and there he stood. Tears were rolling down his cheeks. And the only thing he said to me was, "Dads cry too." And all the effort that I had made, all the people that I had talked to, I had never mentioned Dad. I have no idea why. I asked him if he would tell me his story. Tell me what happened. And he agreed. He said he was the only son of his family, no other children. His mom and dad were already gone. He and his wife only had one child, a boy. And the boy had indicated early in his teen years he wanted to serve his country. So when he got old enough, he signed up for the Army, had his reporting date to Fort Leonard Wood, but Mom died of cancer. He could have gotten out of it. He could have terminated his agreement because of that, but he didn't want to do that. He still wanted to serve. So he went in the Army, ended up in Afghanistan, and there sacrificed his life. And Dad said, I had nobody to talk with. I had nobody that understood what was taking place in my life. I felt horrible. I felt terrible about that because of my efforts previously, that I'd never thought of Dad. And on the way home that day, at about a 2-hour drive, the thought came to my mind, we have got to do something in this state to pay tribute and honor to those who have given so much, one of their own, so we can be who we are and have what we have. And I was on a Veterans State Cemetery Committee at the time, and we were trying to get that cemetery completed, and I said to the committee, we must do something in this cemetery to honor those families, those loved ones. And everybody agreed, and so I got the task of coming up with what are we going to do. And the monument that we have today is what we came up with. We did the first one in 2013, thinking that we were done. We had done what we were supposed to do in our state, let the others take care of their own. But that didn't work. the son of a father killed in Vietnam at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, saw it on the internet, said, we must have one here. That was number 2. Number 3 was done at Tampa, Florida, by a Jefferson's School of Boys. They raised $60,000 themselves, washing cars and mowing lawns and selling T-shirts and anything else that they could do. Took them 2 years, but they raised $60,000, and that was number 3. 47 communities in this country have erected a memorial to pay tribute to those families. It takes somebody like Jeff and Bubba and Jim Bob and somebody who's willing to jump in and go and do in order to get this accomplished, because there is no other way. It can't be done any other way. So I want to thank everyone who is involved in this effort. We don't hear the good things about life. Very seldom do we ever see anything in a newspaper or on social media that tells what a great group of people we Americans are, or how much people give of resources and sacrifice to keep us the America that all of us want to be. At the boys' school in Tampa, the monument was unveiled. The crowds saw it for the first time. Some stayed for a long period, but eventually everybody had to leave. I had not had the opportunity yet to see what was on the face, the imprints on the monument. So I walked over to the monument and looking at the story, because every monument represents that community, something about that place. And this one did too, of course. But the final panel is the sacrifice panel. And I'm standing looking at it, and as I look at that panel, I see 6 Marines in dress blues carrying a casket to the gravesite. Suddenly a tall gentleman walks up beside me. I turn and see that he's looking at the same image I'm looking at. I have no idea of his thoughts, but my thoughts were another sacrifice, so I can be who I am and live as I live and live in the greatest country on earth. And I said something to him like, quite a scene, isn't it? And tears are rolling down his cheeks. And he says, yes, it is. That's my son that they're taking to the gravesite. He wasn't even from Tampa, Florida, but he had heard of the monument and the dedication, and he came because of his loss. So many times I will see mom or dad or a relative just walk up and touch it. Just touch it. Because they know that represents their loved one. And through that representation of that memorial, many have said to me, now I know, he will never be forgotten. Thank you very much.
Tonight, now, we're going to ask, we're going to have a very special part of our evening, which we're going to call the names of 6 of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who fell. These men are all from our area. Their families are here tonight. As I call each one of these veterans' names, and we'll be doing this very slowly, and I'll ask for silence during this. This is a solemn moment. And as we call each name, a bell will be rung, and Woody is going to be standing, and he is going to salute each one of these families in your seats until I call your name. Please accept this ceremony in silence. Sergeant Roy Bright from Little Rock, United States Army. It's his brother, Martin. Roy's date was April 17th, 1969. Chief Warrant Officer Patrick Kordsmeyer from North Little Rock, Army National Guard, died in Iraq, April 2004. His sister Barbara Kordsmeyer joins us tonight. Sergeant Jason M. Swindle from Cabot, died in Afghanistan, September 20th, 2012. His wife, Chelsea Marshall, is here. Sergeant Jonathan Richardson from Bald Knob, United States Army, died in Afghanistan, March 9th, 2010. His wife, Rachel, is here. Staff Sergeant David White, United States Marine Corps. July 16th, 2015, Chattanooga, Tennessee. His father and mother, Martin and Debbie White. Staff Sergeant Jerry Reed II, February 16th, 2012, Afghanistan. His mother and my dear friend, Katarina Reed, his sister. Sorry, your dad.
World War II Navy pilot, Lieutenant J.G. Arthur Rule, February 15, 1953.
I'll ask you to join me in silence and be followed by a prayer that I'm going to lead. As long as we call their names, they are not forgotten. We're dismissed. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.